there's room for books that you want to put out yourself independently, and then there's books that you may be with a publisher. And I'm seeing more authors that are doing that and doing it well.
Welcome to Modern Publishing. I'm Victoria, author, editor, and the owner of Blue Pen, and today I'm on with Jen Craven. Jen is the author of emotional and suspenseful women's fiction. She's a former college instructor, and she loves dark campus novels, which led to her contemporary debut, Best Years of Your Life. So Jen, in March of 23, signed a 2-book deal with Bookouture, which is scheduled for publication in fall of this year and in spring of next year. So Jen has experience in indie and traditional publication, and I'm really excited to talk to you today, Jen, about kind of your decision-making process and your journey, how you got here. I know a lot of our listeners are probably deciding between self-publishing and traditional, trying to figure out what's best for them and their work. So to start off, if you want to kind of just tell us about your path.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I love chatting with listeners and writers and anyone who's considering publishing of any sort. So I'm an open book. I'm happy to share my experiences. So thank you again for having me. I guess I would say that I started out not knowing a whole lot about book publishing. And when I put out my first 2 historical fiction novels, starting in about 2019, 2020, I really just thought my friends and family would maybe read. And I didn't do any sort of marketing. But then from there, I was sort of like, oh, I think I could really make this like more than just a hobby. And so when my 3rd book was coming out, I really decided to go all in, do my research, figure out what the options were for publishing, and, you know, if I really wanted to take it to the next level. So I started by thinking I was going to go down the traditional path and did the query letter, did the synopsis, did my research on agents, had a whole list that I was planning to query and thought would be a really great fit for the novel. So I did query that book for about 4 or so months, and it was going really well. I had a lot of requests. I had some fulls and partials and a lot of excitement right out the gate. But the whole time that those months were passing, it didn't feel right for me. It didn't feel right for this project. And there's a whole list of reasons why it would, that's a whole other conversation. But something in my gut was just saying, like, I just don't think this is the right choice for me at this time. And so I ended up withdrawing all of those queries respectfully and informing the agents that I was going to go a different direction. And so from there, I pivoted and went indie. And I spent several months really reading up on what that was like. I wanted to really do it well and be as professional as possible. And so I did like webinars, anything I could find, all the information I could absorb about indie publishing and self-publishing. I was taking it all in. And so from there, I set myself a pub date in the future about another 4 months. And then when the book came out, I did a ton of marketing, and it was really well. It did really well for an indie book. I was on a lot of podcasts. I made a few lists, things like that. So I think that I learned a lot from the experience. And then when it came time to start writing my next manuscript, which I was doing leading up to the book launch anyways, I was interested in pursuing a different audience, a little bit more of like the e-reader space. And so I pitched Bookouture, and who is a traditional publisher, but very e-book focused and digital first. And so they loved the manuscript and ended up signing me for a 2-book deal. So I had a very interesting path to where I am today in a relatively short amount of time. But I've experienced quite a bit, and I'm really anxious to see what this traditional arm is like for the book that's coming out this fall and next spring. And I'm sure that I foresee my career in the future kind of doing both. I really enjoyed the indie experience, but, there's pros and cons to all of that. So yeah, so I've kind of had a little bit of a windy road to get here, but it's been very interesting.
That's fantastic. I feel like we talk so much about deciding which path is best for you as an author. And sometimes we forget that the best path can also vary for each book, each project.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think in today's world too, that more and more authors are doing both, that there's room for books that you want to put out yourself independently, and then there's books that you may be with a publisher. And I'm seeing more authors that are doing that and doing it well. So I definitely think the old models are changing, and what once used to be a plan B or a backup is now someone's first choice. And so there's just way more opportunities now than there ever were in the past.
So what was the thing that really made you want to switch and go traditional for these books? You mentioned your audience.
Yeah, I think that I was very happy with my indie experience, and given the statistics about indie books and how they sell and things like that, I think my book did fairly well. But I was just kind of, hoping to maybe get out to as many readers as possible. And I think that sometimes you may have a little help when there's a publishing team behind you. And so I knew that I wasn't interested in getting back into the query trenches. I wasn't looking for the agent, and just not right now. I can't predict the future, but for right now, it still just didn't feel like the right choice for me. And so I was looking at small presses and publishers that took unagented submissions. And Bookouture is a really respected publisher out of the UK. I have a couple friends that publish with them and have had a really great experience. And so I said, what the heck? And I submitted the manuscript, and I heard back within 2 weeks, and they were very excited.
Wow, that is a much quicker timeline.
Yes.
Than...
I think that their submission guidelines say to give a couple months. I forget what it says exactly. So I was very surprised when I heard back that quickly. Pleasantly surprised, of course. But to me, it just spoke to that the excitement they had for the manuscript. And so I accepted fairly quickly from there.
That's wonderful. So far with them, have you gotten out of it what you hoped?
Yeah, you know what? There's definitely pros and cons to any of the publishing paths. One thing is when you're going with a publisher, you definitely have to give up some of that creative control that I was used to having as an indie author. When I put out Best Years of Your Life independently, I did everything myself. I had full creative control on the title, the cover, what everything looked like, the timeline, all of that. And I loved that. It is a lot of pressure, and it can be overwhelming to some people to have all of that on your plate, but I did love that. And then now this time around, working with the publishing team, I don't have say on everything. So I have input, but ultimately the publisher has final decisions. And so I've had to sort of learn to step back and put trust in the professionals, that they know what they're doing. They have a great track record that proves that they know what they're doing. And so I have to just sort of say, okay, let's just go with this experience, see what happens, see what it's like. And then I think once I get through the other side, I'll be able to weigh and say like, okay, which did I like better? And where does my priorities lie? What's most important to me in this author journey?
There are so many differences, but a lot of the skills that you gain on each side are going to be applicable. The one that comes to mind is marketing. Even traditional authors still have to do a lot of their own marketing.
Absolutely. I mean, as an indie author, you are completely on your own unless you do hire an outside publicist or, someone to help you, which takes money and comes out of your budget. So yes, the skills I learned marketing my own indie books are definitely coming into play, and I'll use the same ones. It may be perhaps that I have a small boost because I have people that are doing a little bit with me as well, but I'm not relying on that. I'm planning to use all of my own skills this time around too.
So I don't know if there is an objective answer to this question, but What do you think would have been easier, doing indie first and then the traditional like you did, or having the traditional experience and then going indie?
That's a really tough question because I think it depends on the person and the book. Again, I think that years ago, the mentality or the mindset was once you go indie, it's going to be that much harder to then go traditional because you're no longer a debut. And traditional publishing really places a lot of value on debut authors and debut books. But I think that's changing. I really, really think that's not the mindset anymore. I don't really think readers care whether it's a debut book or what this author's done before. They just want to read a good book. They don't really care about all the other stuff. So to me, I don't think that it's hurt my career at all that I went indie first. If anything, I think I learned so much that I can use a lot of those skills regardless of the path. Versus the other way around, if you go traditional first, you might have people doing a lot of things for you. And then if you decide to change paths and go indie, you're sort of like, oh my gosh, like now I have to do this all myself. So I don't know. I think I like the fact that I was indie first because I have so many skills in my back pocket.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks to our viewers for hanging out with us today. I hope this conversation has inspired you to blaze your own trail in the publishing industry. The full episodes are available as podcasts. You can head over to bluepinbooks.com/modern publishing or just search for Modern Publishing wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. Happy writing, and I'll see y'all next time.